Did you know that Saint Francis of Assisi could be viewed as the original Earth Day advocate? Saint Francis is also credited with creating the first reenactment of the nativity scene. Pope Francis chose Francis to honor Saint Francis of Assisi. Pax et Bonum, or Peace and All Good, is the traditional Franciscan welcome and goodbye. And with that, I say to everyone, peace and all good. The patron saint of Italy, Francis of Assisi, was naturally generous, and his warmth reached out not only to his friends but also to the poor. Francesco di Bernardon was born in Assisi, Italy on 1181. His father was a wealthy cloth merchant. His mother was a deeply religious woman. He lived a good and wealthy life. He was blinded by the dream to become successful. He dreamed of knighthood and nobility. Determined for success, Saint Francis participated in a war between Assisi and France. Instead of achieving victory, he was taken prisoner in 1202. He fell very ill, and when he recovered, he decided to make his journey home. Around the age of 23, Francis underwent a gradual conversion which finally led him to reject his wealthy life. In 1205, while he was praying during a trip near the old and destroyed church of St. Damien, he was blinded by a bright light and addressed by a voice from the crucifix that said, "Francis, do you not see how my house is falling into ruin? Go and repair it for me." Francis took the words literally and stole some cloth and a horse and sold them to help for reconstruction of the church. When his father found out, he was enraged, and Francis ran away and sought refuge in a cave. When Francis returned to Assisi, his former friends called him a madman and God's fool. His father chained him only to be set free by his deeply religious mother. Francis' father caught up with him again and dragged off to the local bishop. Francis responded by renouncing his father. "Our Father who art in heaven, I am the Son of God, not of man." He took off all his clothes, gave the money he owed his father, and stood naked. Saint Francis was alone, but he had God on his side to help him. He began to beg for food and earned his keep by working as a handyman in hopes to rebuild the church. He also helped and cared for lepers. He was not afraid. He kissed them and helped them wash their sores. He then devoted himself to a life of poverty and care for the sick and poor. Francis believed everything on earth was a part of the Lord. He loved everything. This is why he's often depicted with animals. In particular, he's often with the wolf. When Saint Francis finally entered the town of Gubbio, he was told that there was a man-eating wolf. He was able to get the wolf to bow at his feet and wag his tail. After Saint Francis left, people were able to feed the wolf with their hands. His journey has depicted values and virtues of humility, compassion, prayer, faithfulness, peacemaking, modesty, theology, charity, truth, and hospitality. Now let's move on to Saint Francis' social involvement, contribution, and impact. After rebuilding the Church of St. Damien, he went to places near Assisi and began to rebuild ruined churches. His evangelical zeal, consecration to poverty, and personal charisma drew thousands of followers. Francis' devotion to the human Jesus and his desire to follow Jesus' example reflected important developments in medieval spirituality. Saint Francis formally founded the Franciscans with these followers in 1209. The Franciscans were known for their extreme humility, and they remain known for their adherence to a lifestyle and focus on preaching to and serving the poor. But before I proceed, let's watch the scene.
Don't send me away because I'm a woman with little strength or gentle manners. I'm not seeking to be understood anymore. I want to understand. I'm not asking to be loved. I want to love. Where there is sadness, please help me find joy.
I think it's noteworthy to say that an 18-year-old noblewoman named Claire risked everything and left her home to be with the Franciscans. Saint Francis of Assisi and Saint Clare of Assisi made the choice to set aside human desires and love God with their whole hearts and soul. Francis and Clare were lovers, though not in the same way lovers are viewed today. Saint Francis performed many miracles, like healing the sick, walking on water, and raising the dead. Saint Francis had a great love of animals. He viewed animals as God's creatures and treated them with the same love he showed human beings. The Canticle of the Creatures for Francis summed up his spirituality and his whole life because he praises God by being a part of all the created world, and he singles out the four elements of the earth, water, air, and fire. He calls them his brothers and sisters, like brother fire, sister water, brother wind, and sister mother earth. He praised God with them. Saint Francis was called Little Brother Francis. He was never ordained as a priest or took a monastic vow, but rather sought an individual relationship with God. His relationship with God is deep and authentic, which we can understand through his teachings. The first teaching is the wonder of the Incarnation. God indwells people just as he had first become human in Jesus Christ. And Francis believes that God indwells the gathering of believers, which we call the church. Second is the evangelical poverty. We find God when we become poor enough for God to find us. For poverty is that heavenly virtue by which all earthly things are removed from the soul so that it may freely enter into union with the eternal Lord God. The third teaching is live the gospel. The map Francis gave us for learning to love is the gospel and his own life of following the footsteps of Christ. Fourth is peace. Inner peace is awareness that God dwells in all of creation, and from that awareness flows concern for nature, justice for the poor, commitment to society. Go and repair God's house. The sixth teaching is the joy of humble praise and service of God. Francis learned how to live with all creatures, loving them and serving them and giving God thanks for them. Everything is thereby holy and worthy of care. The Stigmata. Saint Francis is the first recorded stigmatic. In 1224, 2 years before his death, Saint Francis had a vision in which he saw a flaming angel with 6 wings carrying a crucified man near Mount Alverno. Then a stigmata appeared in the form of wounds in his hands and feet and side. Saint Francis died and left his earthly life on October 3, 1226. Saint Francis was declared a saint on July 16, 1228. He was pronounced a saint by Pope Gregory IX. So why did I choose Saint Francis? Service to the poor and marginalized, affirmation of the unique worth of each person, appreciation for beauty, reverence for all creation, and faith in a personal and provident God. These are the values of Saint Francis of Assisi that made me see him as a true spiritual person. I was privileged enough to experience the way of the Franciscans. My junior high school was administered by the Franciscan Sisters of the Immaculate Conception of the Holy Mother of God. As what have Saint Francis taught, I participated in outreach programs for the needy. I was able to learn various religious practices that enlightened me spiritually. And in every year, we celebrate the feast of Saint Francis through reenactments of his life story. This is the reason why I was deeply amazed by Saint Francis of Assisi. His legacy will never be forgotten because Saint Francis' concept of spirituality is built on strong foundation of all virtues. So that would be all for today. Thank you, and peace and all good.